Bleach Report did a redraft using the past 5 NBA draft classes from 2019 to 2023 because the 2024 class, we don't have nearly enough information to redraft that class. So the last 5 draft classes other than 2024, 2019 to 2023, every player from that draft pool, they redrafted the top 30 players. So they did a first round mock for 5 total draft classes. And what I want to do here is go through my top 10 because a Raptor, specifically Scottie Barnes, could be a significant piece in this in some capacity. So let's see how far I would have him and who else would make my cut. This channel right here is Amateur Hour Clips, part of the Amateur Hour Production Network, where it continues to be all Raptors all the time. On this channel, we take the best segments from the live streams that we do over on the main channel, Amateur Hour Sports, and clip it into some bite-sized segments for you to enjoy. So, if you do enjoy along the way, make sure you do hit that like button and subscribe to the channel as well to stay up to date on all the content we have coming your way. So, fun article here from the Bleach Report NBA staff. I wish I could have been a part of this one, but they did a full top 30. Here is, I'm going to go from the top 20 because there's just a lot of people on this list, which starts with Immanuel Quickley. Unfortunately, I will say out the gate, Immanuel Quickley does not make my top 10. But Immanuel Quickley in 20th, Darius Garland 19th, Brandon Miller 18th. Let's see, Devin Vassell 17th. Oh, I wouldn't have Vassell over Brandon Miller. We have Desmond Bane 16th, who would go to the Toronto Raptors technically in this redraft. Cade at 15. Franz Wagner at 14. Evan Mobley at 13. I'd swap Franz and Mobley, actually. LaMelo Ball, 12. J-Dub in 11th. And then here's our top 10 from the Bleach Report staff. Şengün, 10. Scottie Barnes all the way at 9. We have Chet Holmgren at 8. We have Zion Williamson at 7. Banchero at 6. Ja Morant at 5. Tyrese Maxey at 4. Can you guess the top 3? Tyrese Halliburton at 3. Anthony Edwards at 2. And Victor Wembanyama at the 1. Here is the complete list that they have if you are completely curious. So some other decent names down further on the list, ending with Jaden McDaniels, Jalen Suggs, the Raptors famously passed on with the 4th overall pick in the 2021 draft, all the way at 25 compared to Scottie Barnes, a player they did take at number 9. That's the list that the Bleach Report staff went with. I don't have a ton of reservations against this list. However, I did have my own version that I wanted to showcase and see where I would have guys. So that's what we are going to go through here, and I'll have an explanation for each of my 10 selections. Starting with number 10, it is, I agree, Alperen Şengün. I really like Alperen Şengün. Oop, a little bit of a typo here. He did not go 1st overall in 2022, as I have in the top corner here. Alperen Şengün actually went 16th overall in the 2021 draft. I was a little bit upset when he went there. This was the year the Raptors had the 4th overall pick. And had they slipped a little bit, so they had the 7th best odds. They had the 7th best odds to get the top overall pick in that draft. That was the tank year in the Tampa season. If they had slipped a little bit to 8, 9, or 10, I was really hoping they would take a good look at Alperen Şengün because I was a big fan of him from his game in Turkey and how he played in Turkey. But he just kept slipping. He just kept slipping and slipping and slipping in that draft class, all the way down to 16. And I was like, I was live for this one. I was begging the Raptors, please trade back into the draft and get this guy. This team needs a center. Here is the center. Fortunately, that didn't happen. I am jealous of the Houston Rockets landing him in this spot. Maybe the knock on his game is the pathway to being a really good defender maybe isn't as visible, but I think he was good enough to be an all-star this most recent season, which would be incredibly impressive for a player of his age. He's a fantastic talent on offense. Houston were better playing through him in a lot of different ways last season before the injuries. I'm looking forward to seeing Houston's ascent, especially involved with Alperen Şengün, but lands at number 10 on my list, just making my cut. Number 9, I'm going to go with Chet Holmgren. Drafted a couple of seasons ago. However, he's just coming off his rookie season. He was drafted 2nd overall in 2022 by the Oklahoma City Thunder. And there's a lot to like, for sure. Was in some Rookie of the Year conversations early on in this season. But there's a lot of really talented players on this list who have maybe proven a little bit more, which is why I don't have him a touch higher. I agree that he should be in the top 10 here. What's big about him is that, well, he's big and can shoot threes to a decent degree, can score on the inside, and is a fantastic defender. I would say definitely some defensive player of the year potential if there weren't maybe another really good defensive monster that is on this list. But I think in a year's time, we could see him climbing up this list a little bit more. Clearly a phenomenal talent. And if he can stay healthy, yeah, I expect him to go higher on some lists. But for now, it was kind of splitting hairs here. I have him at number 9. Going to number 8, this is where Zion has fallen a little bit too far for me. If Zion's always healthy, there's definitely a case he goes number 1 on this redraft of the last 5 years. But just the game time. Is it going to be there on a year-to-year basis? Like, if you were taking a player right now, how I evaluated this list, if you were looking at the players right now, right, and you could take any of the players who were drafted in the last 5 years, how confident are you in Zion Williamson continuing to maybe improve and continuing to stay healthy? I'll give him credit. This season, he was used a little bit differently by the Pelicans, not as much of a prominent role for the team, which maybe was part of the reason he was able to stay healthy for 70 games. I'll give him credit there, but it's just such a tightrope that you're walking in order to get Zion playing consistently, which is why I have him at number 8. Just the longevity and injury concerns. That's the reason I have him this low. Talent-wise, he is good enough to be in the top 3 on this list. Talent-wise, he would be, to me, number 3 on this list. But because I'm evaluating based on teams drafting him and the best ability is availability, I got to knock him all the way down to 8th on my list, a 2019 first overall pick, the phenom of that draft class. Number 7 on my list, I wanted to get him higher, but I just couldn't bring myself to doing it. It's Tyrese Maxey. He was drafted 21st overall in the 2020 NBA draft. This was the draft that didn't take place in person, hence a different photo here. But what I loved about his game last season, the way he took it to another level after the trade of James Harden away from the Philadelphia 76ers, is in the playoffs. Man, did he prove that he could be a real top offensive piece when his team needed it. It'll be interesting to see his dynamic with Paul George this season, because Tyrese Maxey should be the second option behind Joel Embiid for that team. Paul George should be the third option. That's a huge testament to the way Tyrese Maxey has played. Perhaps size-wise and defense-wise, we can knock him a touch here, but he's an all-star for a reason. He got a massive contract for a reason. Number 7 on my list, and I debated hard, heavy, could not split these guys. In the end, I just went with Tyrese Halliburton at number 6. I think I favored the size a little bit more. Kind of looking at it now, I kind of wish maybe I'd flipped it, but I'll stick to my guns here and go Tyrese Halliburton at number 6. I don't want recency bias to play too big a part, in the sense that Tyrese Halliburton was kind of managing injuries later on in the season and didn't look as good as he did at the start of the season. Maybe he was just coming back down to earth. Whatever it was, the 12th overall pick from 2020, who the New York Knicks really slipped by not drafting him in this draft class. They needed a point guard, passed on him instead, went Obi Toppin. Should have drafted Halliburton. Instead, the Kings got him at 12th and traded him in a trade that still, to me, is a bad trade for the Sacramento Kings, despite however good Sabonis has been. Tyrese Halliburton would have been better to have. Anyways, he's a fantastic player. Great size for point guard. Amazing distributor. Good shooter. Good scorer to go with it. I am going to slightly edge Tyrese Halliburton to Tyrese Maxey, but that is very, very close. Next up, number 5 on the list. Talent-wise, he should be higher, but you have to factor in the way his career has gone. Ja Morant, number 5 on my list. A 2019 second overall pick behind Zion Williamson. The suspension, man. 2 suspensions. Coming off a big injury in this offseason. Are you confident enough to pass on, to take him over other guys who have a lot of talent? I would bank on Ja Morant over Maxey and Halliburton, because I feel as though he's just the better player. Like, you have to remember, this is like a 26, 27 point per game player on one of the best teams in the Western Conference a few seasons ago. All NBA caliber player. I think that if he can stay healthy and not flash guns on his social media, I think he could be in some MVP conversation at some point. I really am a fan of Ja Morant. I wanted to put him third on this list. I think he was good enough to be third on this list. But just because of the personal antics, the question marks there, I knock him a little bit. I put him down to 5, but I would still go with him over Halliburton and Maxey. A testament to my belief in his abilities. But I don't want to be biased. Like, you might have noticed at this point, you have not seen Scottie Barnes yet. I don't want to be biased in putting him at number 4, but I had to. There's just so little weakness to his game. The 2021 4th overall pick, I'd have Ja Morant talent-wise over him, but I really do favor wings in this, which will be showcased with my list for the rest of it. I favor wings when it comes to drafting talent if I can get one over a guard, and I'm kind of in between them because of the bigger impact that they can have on both ends of the floor and in so many different areas. Scottie Barnes can be a scorer. Scottie Barnes can be a playmaker. Has a bit of a post presence on defense. He can be a rim protector when called upon. He's best as a help defensive 4, but he can also defend on the perimeter. There's just so many different assets to Scottie Barnes' game. And what was also significant to my decision to go with Scottie Barnes in this spot compared to other players is maybe not quite as much talent, even though he was an all-star in his 3rd NBA season. One of the factors is that he is just 22 years old. He's going to turn, 23 years old very, very soon. But he is younger than Halliburton. He is younger than Maxey. He is younger than Ja Morant. So I feel like potential-wise, we're already at the all-star level for Scottie Barnes with still 1 season to go on his rookie contract. Hopefully, he can continue to get better this season. And I'm just betting on the all-around game with the selection here. That's why I'm going to favor Scottie Barnes number 4. That's also why I'm going to slightly favor Paolo Banchero to go number 3 on my list here. Listen, talent-wise, he was some of the other guys. Maybe not, but he was an all-star this season in his 2nd NBA season. And I think that there's a lot of similarities to his talent level to Scottie Barnes. Banchero, I'm going to edge it just because he is the younger player and because he definitely has the higher talent as a scoring player. I made a video recently on my 2nd channel discussing the differences between them, how right now I would slightly favor Scottie Barnes. But if I'm drafting a player for the future, I'm going to, unfortunately, give the slight edge to Paolo Banchero because, this is somebody I think who's going to average above 25 points per game, I think, comfortably at some point in his career. And I think that's a conservative guess. Not quite sure Scottie Barnes has that scoring prowess, but Banchero is a significant player in assist numbers, in rebound numbers, and as much as his defensive numbers don't show up in box scores, he's a good defender on top of that. So I give Banchero the slight benefit of the doubt here between Scottie Barnes and between him and Scottie Barnes. I personally have a little bit of a gap between 6 and then 5, 4, and 3. I feel like 3, 4, and 5 are somewhat close, and a bit of a gap here to 6. Didn't really consider putting Max or Halliburton up with these guys here. Banchero goes number 3. This leaves a difficult top 2, but maybe it isn't that difficult. Anthony Edwards for me, the 2020 first overall pick, goes 2nd overall, which would obviously leave Victor Wembanyama to go 1st overall. We have very little evidence of him compared to other guys, but it's clear Victor Wembanyama is a monster. We'll say my piece about Anthony Edwards, absolute superstar, 2-way star, first option. What a player, man. Was so good in the playoffs. On top of that, a superstar you are ready to build your team around. Full stop, no questions asked. Same can't be said about the rest of the guys. This is a superstar you build your team around. Unfortunately, they already wasted a lot of their assets trading for Rudy Gobert, which could have been spent better elsewhere. Not saying Gobert is bad for them. They overpaid for him, though, and could have used those assets elsewhere. 2-way star, perennial all-star. He will be potentially a perennial all-NBA candidate. But Victor, jeez. Even seeing him at the Olympics right now, I think he's about to be a top 10 player in the NBA this season. I think he'll make All NBA already next season. Obviously, he's a top 10 player. And I feel bad if for anybody who's challenging for Defensive Player of the Year awards in the future, like I said, with Chet Holmgren, because Victor might just win it every fucking season unless there's voter fatigue. He moves so well for his size. He is such good timing. He's freak of nature size-wise. This guy might run the league. We were talking about that before he was drafted, rightfully so. He is unbelievably good. Anybody would pick him as the number one pick in a redraft of the drafts between 2019 and 2023. That's how I have it here. Zion, if he's healthy, probably in the mix for a top 2 here, but so far so good health-wise for Victor. That is a player I would stake my franchise around of anybody in the last 5 seasons. No questions asked.